One checkity check, 1 2. I am here. I am here. Oh, yeah. Okay, I'm just going to turn off the old web browser for a second while I just get up all the windows, because I am here, but I'm not completely Windows full prepared. But I'm got what, like a minute quickly to get all the windows open. We also want our YouTube channel open, which is Mental Health Monday. The mouse is moving really slowly for me as well. That's handy. So I need to switch account. I need to go to Mental Health Monday. There we are. I want your channel. That's our channel. You can now see that on the web browser. Whee, there's that. Got that there, look. That's us. Got that there. Oh, we can relax. We've got it. I've got it on my phone here. You see, I've got all the websites that I was looking at. And so I've got that one. And this was NHS, this final one. So you're going to see nothing again for a second. It's going to disappear. I'll just get my last window. It goes with that. Got that. So now we'll go back to Mental Health Monday. And I'll just get my little window open again. Right, there's that. Let's get your chat popped. Oh, I've got my notes out. I've got that over there. Let's get your chat popped. Let's shuffle that around a bit. Oh, it's changed the size of it on the old screen. Let's get your chat popped. Chat popped. Boom. Got my chat popped. I like having my chat popped. Got that. Chat popped. Welcome to the chat. Welcome to the jungle. Welcome to Mental Health Monday with me, Big Face, and you, chat. So it was only the matter of 5 minutes difference today, but I'm getting the old computer. But it makes a difference, doesn't it? So I need to be here 5 minutes earlier, don't I? Right, that's all my windows. Got them. Got all my windows. Got my notes. haven't got the Samaritans, and they're the ones with other stuff as well. So we'll get them in the browser. Get them in the browser. Let's get them. This is if you are at crisis point. The Samaritans in the UK, you can call them for free. They're waiting for your call. Up. The Samaritans, call them for free. There's the number there. And there's also Lifeline in the USA. Lifeline in the USA. That's a free phone number. Suicide prevention line. In crisis. Feeling bad. Call this number. First thing we want to say on Mental Health Monday every week, every time. The first thing we want to say. I also want to check that you can hear me. Yeah. Health Monday every week. You can hear me. You can. If you want it any louder, you tell me. You know, if you want it any louder, you tell me. If you want it any quieter, you can also tell me. You can tell me whatever you like, really. Tell me. I've got a little thing over here, little dials that I can twist and make it louder or quieter. So you can tell me whatever you like, really. 1 2 1 2. If you want to talk in chat about your mental health concerns, issues, whatever, then that's absolutely fine. You can just bring them up. You can just chat in chat about your mental health concerns. That's always good. We can always just put whatever we're doing, which today is going to be about, well, not the definition of a mental illness, but crisis point, where to get help in crisis, urgent help, what to do in it. I've got notes on this, haven't I? Let's do the introduction. I was just wanting you to make sure you've heard this at the start, which is that you can always just, you know, talk to us in chat. We can always just put what we're doing aside. You can talk to us in chat. And now I'll tell you what we're going to be doing that I don't want us to put aside. No, okay, cool, all good in the hood. What we're doing today is crisis point. So we're going to look at what crisis point looks like. We're going to look at how to help someone. We're going to look at how to help yourself. We're going to look at the limits of our system, specifically in the UK, but generally. And we're going to look at making a plan. And that last one, making a plan, is a biggie. It's a biggie. Because this video is a bit of a funny one. Let's do this. Need that at the start so I can make sure the sound lines up perfectly in the edit. And this week's, hi, you're with Scott. it's Mental Health Monday. It's midnight. It's always midnight. It's also 8 p.m. GMT, which is when Mental Health Monday is. This is your right ear and your left ear. They all like me to say that. You've been good, my little podcast. You can talk in chat with zero judgment. There you go. Exactly. That's exactly right. No one's going to judge you apart from me. I'm going to be the judge. But I'm not going to judge you. But I will judge whether it's, acceptable for chat, so you can't come in here just saying anything rude and mean. Look, I've already started going off on just rambling. Let me have a sip of tea. It's nice to see you here. What I wanted to say this week at the start was, got to make sure, I've got a note on that, got to make sure I say this. We're talking about crisis point. This video is going to go on YouTube as Mental Health Monday, crisis point, what to do in crisis, whatever. If you're coming here from at crisis point right now, I doubt, I can see that there's not like a gazillion people in my chat that are all kicking off in crisis point. So that's like, okay, hi Nigel. I'll accept the role of jury and executioner then if I have to, off with his head. Sorry, off with their heads. So I'm doing it again. What I wanted to say was that this edit, the edit for this week's episode is going to have to be kind of concise, isn't it? Because when people come to the edited version, they're going to be typing into YouTube, mental health emergency. My video is going to come up. And if it's like an hour and a half of me just yambling on, it's not going to help someone. They're not going to be able to say, hang on a minute, Teresa. Hang on a minute, Claire. These are imaginary people who are having mental health crisis over here. Hang on a minute, Ahmed. Hang on a minute. We're not going to be watching an hour and a half video while they have a crisis and then coming back to them to fix it. But at the same time, we're going to need to unpack some of these ideas and talk about them at length in the way we normally do on Mental Health Monday. And I have discovered that the way I normally ramble on doesn't lead to a very punctual edit. I'm not even going to be able to punctually edit the bullet points out of my ramble to make this is an emergency video. So what I thought we'd do is we'd lean on the side of our normal broadcast. I do want to try and make it a bit more concise tonight so it doesn't end up. I also think one of my friends watched one of our videos, which is great. Hello. One of someone I know watched one of our videos, and the takeaway that I got was it was a bit long. Like they weren't saying, oh, it was a bit long. They just said, oh, it's really good. I'd have to watch the rest of it later because it was quite long. And so I thought, oh, there's that's positive feedback from someone who cares enough to watch it. And for even them, it's a bit... So if I ramble on for an hour and a half, it might lose the potency. And certainly this is an episode that I want to feel relatively potent. I've already started. We're already 10 minutes in. None of this is going to make the final cut. Oh. But you dig what I'm saying, don't you? This episode's about crisis point. And if I make it diffuse, then it's going to help. It's not going to be as easy to help people with that. And then before we get into it, I'll tell you a little bit about what I've been doing, because we did this lovely long fortnight episode this weekend. I thought it turned out, it just sort of happened in my life that I ground up the Rick skin, ground up, ground down, did the grind and got the Rick skin for fortnight. And it turned into like a little thing I wrote, like a little scripty thing I wrote, my findings, the grind findings. And then I talked about it for 3.5 hours on stream. And that's now edited down to an hour. If we leave out the Ariana Grande bit, if we leave that out, then we can fit it into an hour. So now I've got an hour's video that I kind of think is kind of a cool format. If I work for a month playing a game, grinding a game, having a go at something, and then I put my findings into a conversation that I script that we talk about on stream, and then we edit that down to a more concise episode, that's quite cool. I like that. I thought that was quite a nice thing. It's kind of what we do here, isn't it, with Mental Health Monday? So but my point being is that I'm halfway through that edit because it's so massive, because we talked for 3.5 hours. So I'm once again aware that the more I ramble on and the more I jiffer jaffer, then, the more chuff that I've got to sit here and watch myself say a second time round and say, why did I say that? It's only made my life more difficult. So with that said, with that in mind, and it has been fun doing the fortnight edit. It's just a shame it's not ready yet. I thought it would, I'm not going to push myself as hard as I did with the old Games of Theme Parks edit. I'm not going as hell for leather as I did with that. But there's a couple of things I want to get in there, which are going to require some B-roll footage to be collected. So it means I've got to play as a team with my team, have a chat to them, put it in. There's a bit more to do, It's coming though. It's going to be good. It's going to be good. That's nothing to do with this. Let's get on with this. Right, you're in for it now. Where to get urgent help for mental... Wait, where's my chat? Make sure that chat is on screen at all times. That's the main one. Secondary main is... Oh, sorry, you're hearing my brain work now. Third important, the internet. Okay. Where did I want to start with this? I wanted to start with the news here. Mental health crisis ends in cells for too many, snapshot suggests. Snapshot suggests. That's not to it. You watched it all, Nigel. But then you'll have to watch it again in a more concise form with some footage over the top and a few edited in conversations from the rest of the team to give some context. Like the long conversation stream is it's actually, God, I'm doing it again. I'll just do it. I can't help it. The long conversation stream is interesting to me because it's like a live... It's not like a live recording session, because in a live recording session I don't do all this yambling. It's not interactive. I just say the things that are on the script and that's all. But it adds more texture to it, doesn't it? And if you're part of that, you get to be part of the process. And then the final edit is something different that lives on YouTube in a slightly different way. People like to consume things on YouTube differently to the way they consume them on Twitch. So yeah, there's a lot of interest in my brain in that. Yeah, it's interesting that you watched. Oh, sorry, it's Snippy Snips. Yeah, after a really crazy day, it's nice to hear the rambling in the background. Great, yeah. That you put that as my like if I was to have a poster for my live show, which is all about wow, come and see me, like wow. But it's nice to have the rambling in the background. I can just for my live show, you can go on the stage and I'll be in the audience just rambling, and you could be doing the main thing. I'll just be in the background. Right, look, this is the news. Serious now, this is the news. Mental health crisis ends in cells for too many, snapshot suggests. What they're basically saying, I'm not going to read you the whole news because there's a bit of, colloquial conversation here from somebody who's had problems themselves with them and their son and the police. And this is studies found from 2018, Freedom of Information Act, Theresa May's government, so it's not actually right now bang on, and it was only from 7 of the 43 police forces, in the UK. So it's only a snapshot, they're saying. It's not a wide-ranging study. But what they were basically saying is the police have to go and sort out mental health issues. They have to take people who are at mental health crisis point, and because they can't take them to a mental health facility, a mental health bed, or a visit from a mental health professional to make an assessment, instead they have to take them to the police station. But there's basically a bit of law, a bit of code that says that's not a safe place for someone who's suffering a mental health crisis to be locked in a police cell, so you're not supposed to do that. But the police have decided overall in 2018, in this snapshot, it has been found, I've got to be careful about, I'm not saying this happens to every time, but this is what happened in this snapshot. They discovered that the police were forced, because they haven't got many options, to make the judgment call and to say, okay, we're going to put this person in the cells until we can find a better place for them. That was their judgment call. So it's happened quite a lot. And if that's a reflection on what's happening in the wider society, if that's not just a snapshot of these 7 police forces, if it's happening all over the UK, probably in America too, this is the problem that we're dealing with, we're looking at today at Crisis Point, is that at Crisis Point, too many people end up in the police cell. So what should you do at Crisis Point? We're going to come to that. What should you do? Where to get urgent help for mental health? We're going to come to that. But before we do, we're going to look at this interesting website, which is how to recognise a mental health crisis and intervene. Well, that's a good idea, isn't it? I have to pause and just I can't keep that up, that energy and pace. I can't keep that up for Mental Health Monday. Yabbing at you, yamming, shouting at you. Gosh, I'd have never made a good children's entertainer, would I? So, how to recognise a mental health crisis intervention. This is carrierclinic.org. I don't know what I didn't look into Carrier Clinic and who they are, but on the 31st of May, their psychiatric acute care unit director, Jacqueline Bienenstock, DMP RNBC, hosted a webinar on how to recognise a mental health crisis and intervene. This post provides a breakdown of the information discussed in the webinar. So that's cool, isn't it? That's good. There she is, smiling. You can download the audio if you can't hear me. I mean, I'm laughing. I'm not laughing at deaf people. I'm laughing at the concept that I bring up. Like, it's good if you find that and you can download the audio, but you're not going to be here listening to my podcast, my Mental Health Monday. You know, I haven't put it in podcast today. I've just put it in. Where have I put it? Where have I put it? I've put it in. Just chatting today. Just chatting about the most severe thing and you could possibly chat about in mental health. But just chatting. Yeah, you wouldn't be here just chatting if you couldn't hear me, would you? So, but if you can't, you can download the audio. So we'll go through this. I'll try and get us through this. The definition of mental health illness in adults. Mental health disorder is a diagnosable illness that affects a person's thinking, emotional state and behaviour and the ability to relate to others. Just as diabetes is a disorder of the pancreas, I didn't know that, pancreas. Mental illness is a disorder of the brain that can make it difficult to cope with the demands of life, disrupting the person's capability to work, carry out activities and engage in satisfying relationships. It's a nice overview, isn't it? 1 out of 5 adults experiences mental illness in a given year. We found 1 in 4 in the UK figures, didn't we? In addition, some experience substance use along with their co-occurring mental illness. So mental health costs the United States billions in lost earnings, it says. There's common disorders. I'm just going to skip on to the crisis bit. I'm trying to keep it concise. As much as I'm trying to keep it concise, I'm also going to have a little bite of my cake. So, well, it's got walnuts in it. Walnuts, they're good for you. They're good for you, especially if you're vegan. They're good for you. They got a special, some of those vitamins. And if you put them all in your cake, then that's got a double value now, that cake. It's a super cake. Recipes for patrons. We could do that, actually. Yeah, we could. Except remember what I said. I don't write down the recipe. I just sort of put it in the bowl until it looks right. I used to have a recipe that I followed. But over the years, we've sort of said... Because I could probably off the top of my head remember some of the appropriate quantities. 75 of flour... Sorry, 100 grams of flour, 75 of cocoa powder. You're supposed to have your 275 grams of, not butter, but I have to say butter because it's ingrained in my brain that way, of fat to cook with, cooking fat, butter. I can't believe it's not butter. You've got to have that. You've got to have, what have I done? Sugar is like, you have almost as much sugar as fat. So you'd have like 200 grams of sugar. But what I tend to do is I put some like maple syrup or some sugary, sweet, syrupy thing and reduce the actual quantity of sugar and put a bit more of the syrup. And I tend to under sugar the cake and over flour it. Like I said, another couple of handfuls of flour can go into that. You want to chop up your loads of chunks. You're supposed to have 4 eggs, but then we start to put in like a banana and a half or some of that aquafaba. But and again, this is not done with any with any measurement. It's just sort of done to get a consistency going. Maybe 2 bananas, depends on the size of bananas, doesn't it? Maybe even a little slosh of soy milk if I'm feeling fruity. And if I am feeling fruity, all sorts of fruits, and this time nuts. So there's a couple of magic ingredients that you can allowed to put in the UK that you're not allowed to put in the you're not allowed to put in the UK, but you are allowed to put in the USA. That you probably want to put in as well, because woo, cake. Does the Just Eggs product? Well, yeah, that would probably work. Yeah, I haven't tried it, but they'll work. That's my general. You see, I've done the recipe now. Patrons, everyone's heard it, and the mental health crisis has been put on hold. Just came out of my brain. Though, didn't it? Just came out of my brain. Just chatting, just having a chat. Oh, and you're going to also want to know about cake tin size is relative to your oven and what you've got. You don't want to overload it. Don't have thick layers of cake in this cake tin. Make it probably about 1.5 inches thick at max. And if you have to use an additional tin for the overspill or whatever, do that. I usually like to line the tin with baking paper and to grease both sides of the baking paper. And then you're in the oven. Your oven's at 170. I like 170 for this. It says 180, you can chuff off. It's a little bit too hot. You can say 160, it's not going to do it properly. 170 for me. And you're in there for about 40 minutes. You want to watch it rise. I know you're looking at the cake while it's rising, watching it. No, I get it, but I like to. I like to watch it rise. And then I like to see, because there's a point where I say, right, that's risen, give it another 10 minutes. And that's usually about 30 to 40 minutes in the oven, at least. But you don't want to overcook it. Definitely don't want to overdo it. Because if it comes out and it's a bit soggy in the middle, you can say, oh, brownies are a bit chewy, and you can squash it down with a plate and a book and say, oh, it's squashy, and just, yeah. It's all, we only work in degree C in the UK. And it's all, there's a little bit of trial and error in this. So if you do this and it doesn't work properly for whatever reason, especially if you're mixing you should know what that batter is supposed to look like. And if it's got too much, like, nuts and chocolate and bits in it, and it's separating, it's not going to work. And if it's too thick and you can't get your spoon through it, it's too thick. That sort of business, isn't it? And when you're getting it out of the oven, you're not in and out of the oven all the time, because if you're in and out of the oven, it knocks the temperature about, and also the slamming and closing the door changes the air pressure, and that'll knock the pressure out of the cake. So what you actually want it to do is to rise. You want this cake to expand, and then the last bit of cooking sets it in that expanded state. So if you let it expand and you think, oh, that's ready, and you open the door and then it starts to sink and you close it, you've done it, haven't you? Let it sink. It's not, you just expand, let it set, and then take it out. So you might want to do a quick test, and if you're cheeky, you can do a little quick test where you get a knife, you pop that knife in the center, and if it comes out nice and clean, you're done. And if it comes out all sticky and bits on it, it's still soft in the middle, needs a bit more. So there you go. And we always work in degree C in the UK, and I'll tell you why I like degree C and not degrees F, is because 0 degrees C, that's frozen, isn't it? That's frosty. That's 0 degrees. That's ice. And then 100 degrees C, that's boiling, mainly, depending on your air pressure and how high you are up. But if it's 100 degrees C, then it's boiling. So but that to me seems a very sensible two ends of the spectrum, doesn't it? Solid ice, boiling hot water, and that's what we're made of, and what most stuff is. So I can reason that out. If it's halfway between, I know what halfway between is going to feel like. Quite hot, but not like, would it scald me 50 degrees C? Probably would, wouldn't it? I don't know. Maybe I'm not that expert, but I know that, if you're talking to me about it being 70 degrees C, then it's really hot, and if it's down there at like 2 degrees C, it's pretty cold. But with Fahrenheit, it's just all these other numbers that just start down in the minuses and go up to 300 and whatever. It just doesn't make any sense. So that's Mental Health Monday for us. We've done 20 minutes. I still haven't gotten. If you're at crisis point, you lost to us now. But this is what we need to talk about. So you'll have another bite of cake. If it falls apart, it's fine. We can just do crisis point next week. There's an infinite number of weeks. One day I'll be dead, and then you won't get any more out of me. But other than that, we can always do it next week. It's fine. Kelvin's pressure points. Are they pressures or also temperatures? Because pressure and temperature and other factors of like humidity and temperature go together, don't they? Like the hotter it is, or is it the colder it is? One of them anyway. And it all plays in together, doesn't it? It all plays in together. And if you have wind chill as well, because we always go on about how hot it is outside, but it depends how windy it is as well, doesn't it? So, with all that said, what is a mental health crisis? Minus 300 degrees. See, that wouldn't make any... I wouldn't even know whether that was hot or cold. It sounds bad. It sounds low, doesn't it? It sounds low. But with Fahrenheit, you can sound like it's big, but it might not be that much. But with Celsius, centigrade, whatever, C, you know where it is. You know 0 is none and 100 is boiling. They're the ones you want to know as well, aren't they? Freezing cold, boiling hot. They're the ones you want to... Anything above boiling hot, well, I get the gist. You can keep going, but it's not going to mean any more to me than chuffing boiling hot, is it? Boiling hot's my limit. Down at the other end, freezing cold. Is it freezing cold? Is it super freezing? Sub-freezing? Well, it doesn't matter. It's freezing. It's all the same. I'm out and wearing my jumper. Below that, wearing your jumper. Above that, don't even bother going out. Jumpers, you can't... too hot. Oh yeah, for cake baking, yeah. That's a good point, isn't it? That's where we started. If I didn't go above 100, I really wouldn't know how to bake. Actually, that's weird, isn't it? Why don't cakes just explode? You're cooking them at above boiling point, and there's quite a lot of moisture in there. Surely that moisture just boils. That's weird, isn't it? Science. Cake science. I should know a bit more about cake science. I do know a bit more about cake science, really. I do a little bit. But it is a little surprising, isn't it? And when you do a cake with, like, you know, something nice in it, like cherries, why don't the cherries just explode, boil and explode? At what point do you add the herbs? Well, if you want to put any oregano or basil or things that are legal in your country, then you can either put them through the butter as a process to sort of flavour the butter, or and also on top of that, you want to put them in the cake as well, just in handfuls, just as much as you can. Just, you know, in handfuls. That's really what's the word, responsible. So what is a mental health crisis? Look, you've come for the cake and you're off. Sorry, I do appreciate that where you are, the time is different, but you're going to know how to make a nice cake, and the people are going to be having their mental health crises, and you're not going to know what to say. And at the end of this episode, if we ever get there, which we probably won't, we're going to talk about how to make a plan, and that's the main bit. So you have to come back and watch it on YouTube, because making a plan in advance is the thing that's going to stop the problem spiraling out of control. That's the thing you want to get ahead of the game. I'll edit that out. That'll go in the... Making a plan will get you ahead of the game. Right. What is a mental health crisis? A mental health crisis is any situation in which a person's behaviour puts them at risk of hurting themselves or others, and or prevents them from being able to care for themselves or function effectively in the community. Many things can lead to a mental health crisis. Home stressors, school stressors, abuse of drugs or alcohol, new medication, stopping medication, treatments not working, all sorts of things. We look at these sort of things on Mental Health Monday every week, don't we? So we know about that. Just going to clarify that a mental health crisis is a situation where their behaviour puts them at risk or someone else at risk. So if you're worried that someone's going to hurt themselves, or if you're worried someone's going to hurt someone else, that's the point where we're calling it crisis in this setting. However, I'm going to add in my own bit. If you think that someone's mental health has deteriorated below their standard, not just, you know, they're feeling a bit down, but you think they're not themselves, they're going downhill here, and you recognise this is a sort of car crash waiting to happen. You know, you think this is going in a bad way. They're drinking a lot, aren't they? Or they're getting in a few fights. That also, to me, from the outsider perspective, would be nearly a crisis point. They might not be saying, oh, I'm at crisis point, oh, everything's on fire, but you know, we're one step away. I don't think you need to wait till things are on fire. You know, if you can see the matches and the gasoline from the Americans, if you can see the petrol, you know, all over the floor, then that's quite an emergency in itself, isn't it? So, you know, I'm going to say just one step before that as well counts, in my opinion, as part of the crisis, the lead up to the crisis, the breakdown to the crisis. Breakdown is a good word, isn't it? If someone's breaking down, do you have to wait until they're fully broken before you can step in and say, okay, we're at crisis point now? No, the start of the breakdown, the lead up to it, that's all part of the crisis. Anyone that may be going through a mental health crisis may experience guilt, anger or grief. It's important to address a mental health emergency quickly and effectively. gosh, I wish the governments would listen to that. Some individuals who are dealing with a mental health illness may not exhibit any warning signs. That's interesting. They might not be showing you these things that we just looked at, that we just talked about, these stressors. Well, we haven't looked at them yet, the warning signs. They're coming up next. Oh, okay. But they might not show you these things, but we're going to look at some warning signs anyway. Please remember, no one's to blame. Not the person or the family surrounding the person. That's a good point. Although sometimes people are to blame. So you only come for the cake. It's too late. You've gone now. I missed that. I didn't miss it. I saw it. I see you. This is a good statement at the end that I'm going to contradict though. No one's to blame, not the person or the family. I get what you're saying. Remember, the person who's at crisis might not be to blame. Remember, the person who is at crisis might be lashing out against people who might not be to blame. But ultimately, remember that also someone might be to blame. Some people might have done some pretty mean things to people to cause them to feel bad. So that's, I'm going to pick them up on that. It says there right under chat where you can't see it, that maybe the person's not to blame. But I think sometimes people might be. Might be not healthy. Might not be healthy for us to be portioning out the blame at this stage. Might not be worth us. It might not be worth us using our energy to allocate blame when there's somebody that needs to be helped. You see what I'm saying? But yeah, maybe later. Warning signs of a mental health crisis. Oh, I wanted to say this at the start and I buggered it up. I haven't said it yet. Get me clappy board. Get me that. Because I can't edit past that without noticing that, can I? I'll do it again. As loud as that is in your ears, it's loud in my ears as well. So it pops up on the little edit line as a little, what's that? The sound peak that I have to deal with. Or did it myself. The reason I wanted to do it was because why did I want to do it? I've forgotten. The warning signs of a mental health crisis. I've forgotten. Do you know what? I've forgotten why I wanted to clap a board. So I had a point that we needed to go at the start that was important about crisis and mental health. And it wasn't just these are the places to get help. It was it wasn't just about planning. Okay, well, if it comes back to me, it will come back to me. I'm, live broadcaster. I can't sit here wondering about what I was going to say. Right, my inability to perform daily tasks. See, that's me having a breakdown. Well, it's not. I'm just a bit confused today. Look, warning signs of a mental health crisis. Because I've been editing all day. That's what it is. My brain is locked into this juggling of ideas in the edit, and now all of a sudden I'm juggling all these other ideas. Yeah, some people don't even realise when they've hurt someone. That's a good point as well. So maybe they're not to blame. Maybe they got hurt by somebody else, and maybe that's made them more likely to do the things. And maybe if you keep going back like that, you can, I don't know, relate it all back to Genghis Khan. Look, let's do the warning signs. Let's make sure we got this for the edit. It's important to know and recognise the warning signs that an individual may be struggling with so you can support them in the best way possible. According to NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness, these are the most common warning signs. Inability to perform daily tasks, bathing, getting dressed, etc. So somebody who's not even in the basic routine, who's not even, they're letting the beard grow, they're letting the hair grow, they're letting wearing the same clothes all the time, not brushing the teeth, inability to perform daily tasks. Rapid mood swings, somebody who can get cross or can be defeated by seemingly random events. Increased agitation, someone who's getting anxious or angry. Risk-taking, out of control behaviour. We talked about this as part of self-harm, didn't we? Risk-taking and out of control behaviour. Someone who's someone who doesn't really seem to care for the consequence of their actions. Today's a 2 coffee cup day. Should have been for me. I've got no coffee cups. Got no coffee I'm drinking at the moment, just tea. Abusive behaviour to the self or someone else. That's more clear, isn't it? If someone, we don't always recognise it as a mental health crisis, but if someone is being abusive, that's not a standard. Maybe, we talk about this in life, don't we? About good and bad, evil and good people and bad people, but really we're all people, and we all do things in our life that are good. Sometimes we do things in life that maybe are bad, and it doesn't mean that we are a this or a that. It means that we're human, and as part of the human experience, we do things and we make mistakes, or we feel like this and then change our minds, or whatever, you know. So I'm not here to say there are bad people out there and you're one of them because you've done something bad, and if being abusive makes you a bad person. I'm here to say that if you can see someone who's being like that, maybe it's a result of a mental health crisis, and maybe it's a symptom of a wider problem, and something that we need to be more compassionate about. And that sounds hard, doesn't it? Because you're going to be compassionate to people who are being abusive. You're going to be compassionate, but eventually, after you've stopped being angry and you're taking your step back and you don't see them anymore because you don't want to hear from them. Eventually, they're still sadly angry and alone. And eventually you and your compassionate side comes around and says, you know what, I still want to help them. Because eventually you are a good person, really, aren't you? You are good, really. You see, this is the point, really. You are good, really. And you kind of want to help the people who are doing these. Because this is society, isn't it? If we could help these people who are being abusive, then we wouldn't have trolls on Twitter. We wouldn't have people beating each other up for their sexual preferences. If we could help these people to feel less, if they're not on a mental health crisis path, if they're not feeling agitated and angry and out of control, maybe they don't do so many of these abusive things. That's interesting. Isolation from school, work, family and friends. This is a tough one too, because if someone's having a mental health crisis, if they're feeling down and depressed, if there's been a trigger, certainly with grief or a relationship breakdown or something like that, if there's been a trigger, then they might want to say, look, I just want to spend some time at home now. I don't want to come out to do the thing. I don't want to come to the birthday party. I'm going to stay away from work. I need some time off. I don't want to go to school. Those sort of feelings are going to come to the fore, and you need that time to recover. I totally get that. But it can also lead to a deepening mental health crisis because you're shutting yourself off from the things that can improve your mental health the most. So there's that to look out for. And it's hard to look out for because you can't see them doing it because they're not there in your eye line. They're away, aren't they, these people? That's a bit of a vicious cycle. Loss of touch with reality. Hard to gain a handle on from the outside unless people are actively making statements and doing things that makes you think, hang on, that doesn't make much sense. But if it's you on the inside, it's even harder to get a handle on, because if you're losing touch with reality, you only perceive things from your perspective, so you think it's real. This is why with people who are having delusions, you don't really say to them, oh, don't be silly, that's ridiculous, you're having a delusion, sit down and just stop being delusional. You have to say to yourself, okay, in their world this is what's real, so to them this is real. I'm going to say to them, okay, I don't see this, I don't have the same perception as you, but if that's how you feel, we're going to make you feel more comfortable. I'm going to treat it as real to you because it is real to you. I'm not going to devalue it and say it's just nonsense. So loss of touch with reality is very difficult, but there are ways, and we're going to come on to we're going to come on to the help kit in a bit. There are ways to make almost a bit like that film Inception, where they've got those spinning things that keep you in, whether you're in a dream or not. There are ways to touch base with reality, I feel, and we can look at those in a little bit. Rehabilitation versus punishment. Rehabilitation and compassion seem to work better. Yeah, that's going back to the abusive behaviour, isn't it? Yeah, the difficulty, of course, and I'll pick this up because it's a really good point that Snips has made here. Rehabilitation versus punishment. What we went from our very start point is the difficulty with this is that the abusive behaviour usually brings the crime and punishment aspect into the circle. Someone who's suffering with a mental health breakdown might end up being arrested, might end up being approached by the police through their out of control, risk-taking, abusive behaviour, and instead of being able to access any sort of mental health service, even though we saw at the start, it's probably one of the least safe places for them to be, locked in a police cell. They end up in that system, and then through that system they become even further criminalized, because once you're in an institution with lots of other people and you're having your breakdown and, you know, acting violently and abusively, you're going to end up having fights, punishments, further incriminations. You know, it can be a really serious problem, and one that could have been solved if we could have maybe looked at the core reasons for someone's behavior rather than simply punishing the consequences. Final one there, paranoia. Very similar to the loss of reality, but a bit easier to spot with paranoia because it's an accelerated version of reality. You don't normally experience, and even whilst you are paranoid, you can say to yourself, this seems a little bit excessive. Even if you fully believe in the delusions, you can also, the reason you feel paranoid is because they're on an excessive edge. They're not normal. So paranoia is an interesting one as well. Yeah, warning signs of a mental health crisis, paranoia. And that's difficult because the people who are paranoid are least likely to reach out and to interact with agencies of support, I guess. So paranoia, yeah. Take a little tea break for a second. Got through that one, didn't we? Got through that one. I think if we do it this way, if I have a little bang at it and, you know, say the words that are on there. I'm also conscious this is somebody else's words that they've put into this document. I told you who it was at the start, didn't I? Told you it was at the start. Where is she? Jacqueline here. And Jacqueline's done a really good job, and it's accessible through their own Hackensack Meridian Carrier Clinic, their own website. And again, like I said, I haven't in depth, you know, I don't know what these people stand for or any politics or anything like that. I just know that this is a good piece on mental health, and they've got what I'm trying to say is I don't just want to read out somebody else's words, like copyright infringe them and rip them off and, you know, claim, oh, what a good episode I've done here, when they've done the writing for me. But at the same time, this is like a free resource that's out there on the internet, and we're going to extrapolate more from it. So obviously that's not what I'm doing here. I want to make it clear though that that's what, you know, they've done the good work. They've done the good work, so it enables us to create this video. Where are we? Warning signs of suicide. Okay, here. It enables us to create this video, and yeah, I just wanted to make, I've said that now, haven't I? I've made that point, yeah. Sometimes it's difficult to refrain from being reactive to painful things a person struggling with mental health may say or do. You probably can't help them a whole load if you're focusing on how they make you feel rather than how they are feeling. That's really true, and I'll dig into that a little bit as well. Often the people who are dealing with these things are either close friends or family members, and so the minute that one thing starts to get said by somebody, or an attitude starts to come up about this or that, it can devolve into a more squabbly argument. You know, it's very hard to sort of say exactly what Snips has said, to refrain from being reactive, to not bite, isn't it? It's very hard to not bite. And quite often the people who are doing the action, who are doing the we'll say aggressive action, they actually want a response. They want you to bite, because it's this playing out of this I see it a bit like a living soap opera, you know. Some people, they've watched so much, in my opinion, I might be wrong about this, they've watched so much stuff on telly and in the news, and they want their life to be dramatic as well. And I'm not, this is a bit silly what I'm saying, because I'm not labelling every single person who's having a mental health breakdown as a drama queen. Absolutely not what I'm doing. But what I'm saying is that there seems to be this function of argument. It gains attention, it creates like this ongoing storyline of who said thing to what and who's right about this, and it creates you know, life can be boring, can't it? But not for the people who are constantly throwing out all this dysfunction. It's not boring for them. It's crying out for help and pushing us away at the same time, says Snips. They're often confused by their own behaviour. Yeah, see, that makes sense. And so if you take that away, if you take all that away, what have they got? You know, they're left with fewer tools to communicate with, they're left with fewer interactions, they're not as important in a way. You know, important's a good word, isn't it? Because someone might want to feel important and not know whether they do or not, even maybe their own feelings of self-worth. But by causing these dysfunctions, suddenly they are the center of this universe of chaos. So you have to deal with it, sort of thing. So yeah, and we're going to come on now to a very tough topic, aren't we? We're going to come on, so I'm going to have another bit of cake. No laughing about this one. Get talking with your mouth full. Right, before 9 o'clock, before the 15 minutes is up, I'm going to bang this one through, this little section. Nice and serious. When the crisis involves the risk of suicide. Risk of suicide is a major concern for anyone with a mental health condition and those who love them. Encouraging someone to get help is the first step towards safety. People who attempt suicide usually feel overwhelming emotional pain. Yep, been there. Straight away with the jokes. I'm not joking. You know, we can talk about that another time maybe, but yeah, been there. Loneliness, worthlessness, hopelessness, powerlessness, frustration, shame, guilt, rage, and sometimes self-hatred. So like these are, imagine that. If you don't feel, wait, what am I saying? If you don't feel suicidal, imagine it. I can't get as really used to that, because it's funny the way I think and behave. I don't want you to imagine it. I don't want you to feel like that. I don't want that. But this collection of feelings, overwhelming pain, worthlessness, frustration, rage, it's such a, like, what I'm trying to say is, imagine a nice box of chocolates. Imagine your favourite box of chocolates. You know, your favourite chocolates, and there's all the different ones in there, aren't there? And they've got the coloured wrappers, and there's the ones that you like, and there's the ones that you don't quite like because they're a bit chewy. And why did they put that one in anyway? Like, that one's always left at the end. But you know, in the main, you pick out these three and you put them in the cupboard because you make sure you've got them for later. And like, you've got your favourite ones. Imagine your favourite box of chocolates. Now imagine each and every chocolate is just horrible. All your worst foods. You know, it's bits of fish eye and all horrible. You know, all horrible things. Oh, all the rubbish. All the horrible things you don't want to eat. Each and every one. And not only have you got to eat them, you know, force them down. But that's every day, isn't it? That's every meal. This is the sort of point I'm trying to make, is it's pretty bad. Yeah, it's pretty bad. It is pretty bad. What am I trying to say here? I'm trying to emphasise that collection of emotions is... You can see why people look for a route away from that. You can see why people look to escape from that. And when the options they have to stop that collection of feelings, to stop having to eat those horrible chocolates all the time, when the options are limited, you can see why potentially easier or more accessible options end up in their mind as an option, as a choice. And with suicide, of course, it's very difficult to go back, isn't it? It's very difficult to say, well, you know, I tried that and it wasn't really the best thing. It's very difficult to say the next day I felt completely different. You know, I went out and I spent all that money on that jacket and then I don't ever wear it. It's just in the cupboard. You know, the next day I felt a bit different. I bought those shoes off the internet thinking they were just my thing, right up my street. And they've just sat in the box in the cupboard. Never wore them. You know, imagine if you didn't make a decision like that and you can't go back on it. But you can see why people with chronic pain have no escape. People with physical and emotional pain feel it's never going to end. So you can see why it comes up. Social isolation is very common in the lives of those with mental illness because it reinforces the belief that no one cares if they live or die. And that's interesting. I'm trying to do this one bullet points, but it's really interesting. We've got a friend who recently we discussed mental health with, who was going through a rough patch. And I don't know, I didn't say to them, I care if you're here or not. A different friend we recently bought a gift for, and I say we, basically someone recently said to us, this is a nice gift, not only because it's a nice gift, because it sort of says that I'm in the group, I'm in the crew sort of thing. And I thought, well, that's a strange thing to say, because I've sort of felt that about you for a long time. Like, I'm not going to name the things that we've done together on the internet, because obviously I'm trying to make this general and not specific. But this, I could have listed things about this particular person that over the years we've done together, and if they ever want to pop by, the door's open, we're in the crew, we're friends. But we never said it, no one had ever said to each other, look, you're definitely my friend now. Do you know what I mean? No one had said, look, this third invite to my house is the one that tips you over the edge where you're allowed to text me. In fact, I don't text and call back people all the time. I'm not big on that. I either see them a lot or I don't, and it just, we talked about that before. But self-isolation, we're talking about suicide here, and the crisis point is that people believe no one cares if they live or die. Well, you don't know, because people don't generally tell you, but honestly, they do care. And you'd be surprised. Here's a different question. To put this in context. Has anyone ever died and you felt really sad about it, and yet they've not been that close to you? Maybe it's been someone you knew through work, or a colleague, or a teacher. I remember when I was a kid, a teacher died and it really upset me, but I don't think they would have known how upset I was, because to them I was just one of the kids in the class. And they didn't teach me, they only taught me for a little bit. They had so many more people in their life that were close to them, that were upset. They would never have known how upset I was. So to me, it was huge when they passed. But they didn't really know that. Imagine that. Like, you think about that, in terms of crisis point, imagine people that you've known that have passed, that it's really been a big effect on you, that you didn't really, you never even told them. You never even sort of made a big thing in life about how important you didn't even know how important they were to you until they were gone. Well, that could be you. So don't just jack it in, because someone does care if you live or die. Someone might do anyway. Robin Williams passed. There's one. There's a really good one. Yeah. Celebrity deaths. This is a good. Hello, Stolen Waffles. Hello, Stolen Waffles. You're new. I'm going to point at you and tell you that you're new, to make you feel really included and part of the group. To make sure that you don't feel like, don't feel embarrassed at all. Hello, you're new. But I don't know if you are new. You are new, I think, in chat. Well, at least your name has not repeatedly come up. There you go. It's all good. So there we go. It's all good. It's fine. It's a good example, though, of Robin Williams passing, and the celebrity deaths in general, because they're people that we know, aren't they? But we don't know them. We don't spend time in their lives. But sometimes their absence can feel huge, and we didn't realise what it was they were giving to us, what it was they were, how they were enriching our lives, until that was removed, and you thought, oh, I can't have any more of that. Not going to get any more of that. And so during the time that they were alive, I never even attempted to go and see Robin Williams live in concert. I never even thought about it. But then after he died, I realised he did such good stand-up, because more of this material came to the fore, didn't it? And I thought, gosh, I've missed the opportunity to see a wonderful comedian live in concert. I should do that more. So, and the sadness as well. Maybe Robin Williams didn't fill me with the same level of sadness, but I know exactly what you mean for other celebrities that I didn't realise were going to make me feel. UB40 today, the trom. He plays it's like a big horn, saxophone. The saxophone player of UB40. It was announced that he died today, and that made me feel really sad, because exactly the same. Oh look! Thank you for the gifting the sub, and thank you for saying thank you. An official Ganji Puka warrior you are now. Official. You've got your subscription, which hasn't got any little emotes yet, because we still ain't got there yet, because it's such a lot of hard work for me to make such an important decision. But we've got subscribers. We're new on the old Twitch. We're new this year. So you're part of the Ganji Puka warrior crew now. So There you go. There's some gifting tier subs going on. There's some thankings going on. I really appreciate the concept of gratitude and the thanking that's going on between you. So that's important to highlight. And we've also importantly highlighted, when people die, we care. They might not be, they might not know how much we care. And that's, I'll tell you what as well. On top of that, the celebrities, there's this other point that's like brewing in my mind here. There's this outpouring, isn't there, when they die, of this like, oh, I loved it so much when they did this. Sean Locke recently died, a British comedian, and I was surprised by the amount of content that's been shared on social media about how many people loved him and loved his work, and they didn't share this when he was alive. You know, there's this extra outpouring because maybe people feel like, oh, sugar, I should have said something when he was alive. I should have, you know, maybe we should all take from this a little point, a little Scott's top tips. Maybe we should all make a point of saying something nice about someone we respect to them, you know, in the public sphere, because we do care, don't we? And we're learning that, how important it is. Yeah, and we could go into the Robin Williams. I mean, this, we're talking about suicide, aren't we? So maybe we should go into it now. I believe Robin Williams had health concerns as well as, you know, he had problems with alcoholism, problems with substance abuse. He had problems with mental health. I think he had problems with bipolar, and I think he had problems with a degenerative brain disease as well. And, you know, like we were talking about before, overwhelming emotional pain, loneliness, worthlessness. How can someone so loved, so popular and so charismatic feel, oh no, sorry, not the Ubisoft saxophonist, sorry, now I'm getting my dead people confused. I'll say the thing about Robin Williams and then I'll say the other thing. The Robin Williams thing, how can someone so amazing that we see as such a shining light feel so isolated, alone and frustrated, feel so helpless and worthless that they'd just like to jaff it in now? That is something that I still can't quite get my head around, because it would seem that all they would have to do is to, you know, to just simply, you know, cast their net a little bit and see what people think. But it is so important to realise that if that can happen to someone like him, then, you know, somebody who's not loved by all, lauded on stage, DVD extras, you know, could just welcoming tonight on stage for their interview. Robin Williams, you know, someone who's not got all that, imagine how easy it is for them to slip, you know, when they stay at home and no one cares, because no one cares. Yeah. Well, we care. Yeah. He battled dementia. There you go. And it is a battle to, you know, accept a diagnosis. Yeah. And certainly things like that you can feel that you're alone with, can't you? Because it is you that's carrying it. But we, in a way, we're always alone, but in another way we're not, because we're all human and we can share other people's experiences, so we're all part of that mix. Any talk of suicide, I should do a for this, for the edit. Any talk of suicide must always be taken seriously. If someone has attempted suicide before, the risk is even greater. And then, yeah, just for our conversation, the UB40 saxophonist didn't kill himself. He sadly died, I think. So let's not get our dead people confused. Do you like it? Do you like the way I'm slightly inappropriate, which is funny, but at the same time I'm talking very seriously about something very serious, and I care and I am serious about it? One of the problems I'm going to have as we go forward, as I am a streamer, is, you know, you can't make jokes about certain subjects, but I instinctively feel it's even funnier if I say the most inappropriate things. But I'm kind of used to not doing that now on the internet. Kind of used to not doing it. I was used to not doing it in my social life and personal life, except as a hairdresser, you can get away with saying some quite inappropriate things. So I was quite used to actually deliberately saying the most inappropriate things at times. But on the internet, you can't, like, there's borders. It's all right for me to be myself and have a bit of a joke, but then you can get clipped saying something horrible and it can just go out there and look horrible. So I don't want to accidentally look horrible, if that makes sense. But you know my heart's in the right place. You see, you know me, so we can joke together. But I do worry myself sometimes that we're going to be, you know, perceived badly for having a light-hearted look at suicide, which is not what we're doing. I wanted to make that clear. Here we go. Warning signs of suicide. We need to get through this, and in order to get through it, let's just read them. Let me do the bullet points. Let's get through it, because then we can move after suicide. We can move on to some other stuff, which is how to de-escalate a crisis, which is quite good as well. But we need to cover this. You know, it's important that this is not swept under the rug, because people are chuffing well, topping themselves, and they don't need to. You know, they don't need to. They feel in crisis. They feel in crisis. These are the warning signs. Okay, look out if you spot any of this. If you know anyone who's doing this, or if you yourself are doing this without really thinking and understanding why, this is the point where we want to step in and intervene, not when it gets too late. So, the following are warning signs of suicide: giving away personal possessions. I've got to be able to talk. Talking as if saying goodbye. Stockpiling pills or obtaining a weapon. That's a bit of a scary one, isn't it? Stockpiling pills or obtaining a weapon. I'm not going to stop and make jokes. I'm just going to get through them. Taking steps to tie up loose ends. Making or changing a will. Preoccupation with death. Sudden cheerfulness or calm after being despondent. That's a bit of a weird one. That's me, isn't it? That's what I'm doing all the time here. I'm not being that despondent, but I suppose I will pick out a couple of these. I'd like to pick out preoccupation with death, because sometimes teenage angst, being a bit of a goth, the Kurt Cobain effect. Sometimes there's a romance involved in suicide that people experiencing dysfunction as teenagers can veer towards, and it's why that art form, that music, that rock music, that I don't know what they might call it these days, emo. I bet they don't call it that anymore either. But it's what that is fueled by and expresses. We talked about express yourself last week, or the week before. So there are some aspects of that which are okay to work through, but of course stand out as well as a preoccupation with death that are important to focus on and to look into. The cheerfulness could stem from knowing that the end is finally coming. Now they have their plan in order. Wow, that's heavy, isn't it? That's heavy. That's an interesting way to look at that. I was going to say that it might be that they just try and hide their, you know, if I'm going to show you my true despondency and then realise, oh, sugar, I'm telling people this thing and I want to hide it away, then I'm going to pretend it's all right. It's just a facade. But I totally agree, this thing, it could stem from them knowing the end is finally near, like, you know, nothing matters anymore. Yeah. Snippy Snip says they're cheerful because they've got a plan for their suicide and it's a relief from pain. So yeah, you're both more educated than I on this. Me, more educated than me on this. But yeah, let's not get me too distracted. Let's get these done, because it's got to go in the video and it's got to make sense to somebody who's trying to take in the information. Increased drug or alcohol use. That one makes sense, we can see that, but it's important to note as well that somebody who's a bit of a party animal, or you know, is always down the pub, might not be just a hedonist, might be following this path. Dramatic changes in personality, drop my pencil, dramatic changes in personality, mood and or behaviour. Saying things like nothing matters anymore, you'll be better off without me, and life isn't worth living. They're pretty clear ones, aren't they? They're pretty clear. Withdrawal from friends, family and regular activities, failed romantic relationships, history of suicide attempts or family or friend suicide attempts. So I'm going to pick up another couple of points here. The withdrawal from friends and family and the failed relationships is more obvious to somebody in the family who sees that happening to somebody, yeah. The history in the suicide and the friend suicide is a bit more of a subtle effect that, and I've seen it in action in real life as well. So, yeah, for some reason, knowing someone close to you who actually goes through with killing themselves, for some reason, it elevates that risk. Maybe because you have to maybe because you have to what's the word? I want to say construct. What I mean is to face it head on, confront. Maybe it's because you confront that concept and are forced to think through it. Maybe it's because of the pain and the anguish that you are overloaded with by the process of having to do that. I don't know. I'm not even going to pretend to know. But it's important to know that if you do know somebody, how do I say this? If you know somebody who knows somebody who's killed themselves, if in your social group somebody has attempted suicide or knows someone who, you've got to keep a lookout for each other. That's the way I want to say that. You know who I'm talking to. You know who you are. Because our social group, my local friends group, we know who we are. We've got a friend who is not with us anymore through their own choice. And, we've got to look out for each other. Yeah. We've all got to look out for each other because of that. That's important to know. We got there, didn't we? We got through that little one. Whew. There's another one here. It's about suicide as well. What to do and what not to do. Right, these are important, so we've got to do them. What are we at Monday, 9 o'clock? I'll tell you what I'm going to do. Team, Ganji Puka Warrior team here. I am going to bullet point bang out this bit and get to the techniques to de-escalate relatively quickly, because this is the... Where am I? I've lost it, you see. No, I've done that for. This is the what you call it? The nuts and potatoes of what we're doing today. Right. Come on, Scotty Yachty. Come on, Scotty Yachty. We'll do this. What to do if you suspect someone is thinking about suicide. If you notice any of the above warning signs, or if you're concerned someone you know is thinking about suicide, you must start the conversation. Mind blown. You must start the conversation. I thought they were going to be like, start the ambulance. You must call the... No. Start the conversation. Talk to them. Talk to the people around them. Talk about the things that they're struggling with. Start the conversation. How to talk to someone at risk of suicide. Open the conversation by sharing specific signs you noticed. For example, I noticed lately you've not been sleeping well. You're not interested in basketball anymore, which you used to love, and you're posting a lot of sad songs on Facebook. That's their example. I'm going to stick with it. I've noticed that you've been putting salt in your porridge. I've noticed that every time you go past number 4, you kick their cat. Sorry, I'm making my jokes. Come on, put it back in. Put it back in. Put it back in. That's good though. So, number 1, bullet point 1. Say the things that you're concerned about. Give them the examples. Bullet point 2. The next question should establish if they're thinking about or planning for suicide. This can be along the lines of, are you thinking about suicide? Do you have a plan? Do you know how you would do it? And when was the last time you thought about suicide? If the answer is yes, or if they think they might be at risk of suicide, you must seek help immediately. Good calls. That seeking help bit is what we're going to come on to in a minute. So bear with me on that. But it's not going to be as easy as we hope it would. But there are avenues. We've looked at the very start. Lifeline, Samaritans. They're great avenues. They're great places to start. The doctors, 111, National Health in the UK, 999 if it's a police-based emergency, which we hope it doesn't get to. 111 even if you want to talk to the police and you're not sure. So websites, of course, but these are things that I've had to say out loud, so make sure we said them. But really interesting here that to say to somebody, how would you do it? That seems like a really awkward question, doesn't it? Seems like a really awkward question, and also not one I'd want to have to answer or to ask. I wouldn't really, if I knew someone was suicidal, I wouldn't really want to sort of be talking about the mechanics of suicide. I would want to get them off it, distract them. But maybe it is important. They're saying it's important. Maybe it is important, because I guess then you're more prepared to help prevent it. and you're more understanding of how serious they are. There's some things to think about. If the answer is yes with any of those questions, you think they might be at risk, you get help immediately. You call a healthcare professional. You remove things like weapons and medications. So I didn't say that, but that's good, isn't it? Remove the dangers. You can't do the padded room. You're not going to wrap everyone up in bubble wrap. But, you know, don't just leave the bottles of dangerous medicines or, you know, sharp tools around. It makes sense, doesn't it? Call 911, 118. Look, call that number. Listen, often... I read that there as, listen, offer support, but it means listen. Offer support and assurance. Focus on being understanding, caring, and non-judgmental. For example, you're not alone. I'm here for you. You're important to me. We'll get through this together. I'm concerned about you, and I want you to know that there's help available to help you get through this. That's their suggestion. We talked before in Mental Health Monday about using you at the start of your sentence as a part of an empathy process. So it might be tempting for you to say, look, I'm going to help you. I know that you feel bad. I know a way you can get out of it. I'm here for you. But what this person who's suffering is hearing is, I. They don't want to know about what you feel. They're suffering. So you telling them about what you, I like EastEnders, I like chocolate, I feel this, I think that's good and I think that's bad. It's all about you, isn't it? It's I. Don't let I be your favourite letter of the alphabet. Don't let I be the first letter of your sentences. Start with you. If you use your favourite letter of the alphabet, you say to this person, so you feel really down, so you are having these thoughts. We're guiding them into a place where not only can we show them we understand what they're saying, by repeating back to them, oh, thanks, Nigel. The mic's buzzing sometimes. It's a function of the wires. And I've got too many of them to potentially... It didn't do it the other day, did it? Didn't do it the other day. Maybe it's because I'm getting too animated. We'll turn the compressor down a little bit, the gain down. I don't know. Can't fix it now. We're way too far in to fix that now. But thanks for telling me. I will attempt to remedy it. We are saying you at the start of our sentences. And if someone is having a crisis, it's going to show them that you understand where they are coming from, because you're able to tell them, maybe in the slightly different words from the words they've used. So it helps to show them that you've understood them. And you're giving them the space to then talk more about themselves. You're not judging, like we said at the start, not judgmental. You're not saying you feel this and therefore I think this. You're saying you think this. Here is space for saying some more. It's good practice to create a space for them to feel like they're being heard and that you value their thoughts. Yeah, that's key, isn't it? And we said this at the start as well. They might be having some really strange thoughts. So saying to them, no, that's a silly thing to think. Oh, you shouldn't think like that. That doesn't really establish this safe space, does it? It sort of says to them that, well, if I say what I think, they shut me down. So maybe it's okay to say, that's surprising to me, but go ahead, go on. You know, maybe you yourself are going to need to have a bit of a poker face on some of these things and to be able to not react and to say, okay, fair enough, safe space, go ahead. Really good. We're getting some good points out of that. That's good. What not to say if you suspect someone is thinking about suicide. What not to say. So we'll get some good ones out of this, hopefully. Do not. I don't know why, but I like a do not list so much better than a to-do list. Do not lists are really easy to accomplish for number one. You just sit still. They're all done. And number two, I don't know what it is about it. I don't know. It's just something about it. What you shouldn't do. Here we go. Do not promise secrecy. Instead, you can say something like, I care about you too much to keep this thing a secret. You need help, and I'm making sure that you get it. That's quite bold, isn't it? That's quite bold, quite brave what they've said. I might temper that with saying, look, we'll keep this between us for now, but I believe we should be talking about it with more people. How about we bring in XYZ? You know, so you acknowledge their desire for secrecy, because often people are not going to want to shout this from the rooftops. So you acknowledge their desire for secrecy, and you respect their what they're asking of you, but you also put forward your case, not in a big way, but just put forward the facts that you do want to talk about it with more people. You probably will do. You know, you're gonna. It might come out nicely by saying, I need more help with this from so and so. Is it okay if I talk about it with them? You know, can we bring them in? Maybe bringing someone in seems a little less threatening than I'm going to tell everyone. You know what I'm saying? So there's Scotty Hotty's tip for that. Do not debate the value of living or argue that suicide is right or wrong. That's interesting, isn't it? I really don't know why that's there. I don't. It seems so natural to debate that, but of course the person you're debating it to is not seeing these things. They've already gone through this. They're already down their path. They've already made their choices. So the debate is really, you know, when you're arguing with someone, like, we've had so many arguments recently. You know, we've had Brexit in the UK. We've had this coronavirus, people's different opinions about vaccines and all that. It's not... the vaccine opinion is probably a good way of explaining this, is that if someone said to you, I've got a friend who recently I found out he's anti-vax, gosh. And so if I go to them and say, oh, well, here's all the information about vaccines, well, they've already been on the internet and looked at all the information, haven't they? So they're coming to me saying, well, actually, here's all the information about anti-vaccines. Well, we're not coming to it. I'm not looking at their stuff and going, oh, that's interesting. I think they could be right. And they're not looking at my stuff thinking that. In fact, we're just trying our hardest to make the other person see our point of view. We're not trying our hardest to understand their point of view and to take it on board. So if someone is feeling suicidal and you argue with them and you're arguing with them, they might even start feeling more set in their idea. They might defend their position. They might not agree with the things you say. And then where have you got? Into an argument. And they don't even agree. They just try and push their point. So that energy is probably not the right energy for somebody who's suicidal, that argumentative energy, even if it's about the core issue that they're dealing with. Arguing your way through it. Yeah, this is something I said to I once met an Irish man on a plane. It's a really cool story. A real life Irish man, and I'm a real life English man of sorts. You know, I'm multicultural, racial, or whatever you want to call it. I get to claim because my dad was born in a different country. Anyway, look, what we're going to say is that me, the English person, the Irish, but we have cultural differences, and there are things that he explained to me about things that had happened in the past I didn't even know. So one of the things I said to him, and we didn't have an argument, and he was saying, this is interesting that we're not having an argument, even though our points of view do not correlate. And I said, yeah, because you can't actually get anywhere by arguing with someone. Like, no one ever changed anyone's mind with an argument, did they? And that sounds bizarre, doesn't it? Because that's the whole point of an argument, is to change someone's mind. But the way we've set this up, the way, and this goes back to our culture in the West, and it goes back to our this is really key. It goes back to a social culture, a social set of norms and values that was imposed on us by the aristocracy, by and we're going to sort of Marxist places, you know, the proletariat, the working classes, and the bourgeoisie. But the bourgeoisie, you know, the public schools, the Eton colleges, the Oxford universities, they've got a system of debating a subject where you have this house believes, and you put them on one side, and then you have the other team, and they believe this other thing, and you write your logical arguments. You go through your is it Plato, or was it Plato who, you know, logical forms, Aristotle it might. Anyway, I'm not a philosopher. I'm not on Philosophy Tube. There are some really good philosophers who do some really long, interesting videos about this sort of concept. But my point is that we learned to debate topics from one side and the other. You see it now in politics, don't you? And in politics, the right wing, like, imagine if Donald Trump and who was he having a row with? Joe Biden. You know, imagine if Donald Trump and Joe Biden did their debate, and at the end of the debate, one of them said, "Do you know what? I agree with you. What you said makes sense. I've never heard that before. That's interesting. I will think about that and maybe change to be on your team." Like, that's not the point of it, is it? Like, Donald's not going to say that to Joe. Joe's not going to say that to Donald. They've heard all the arguments. They've researched them. And their bit of paper is how to rebut them. So arguments don't change opinions. Not between the people who are arguing. They might inform people who are watching on of the potential opinions, but quite often the people watching are already invested in it to the point that they've developed their own opinions. So going back to the anti-vax, you can't say to an anti-vaxxer, here is the information. Why would they believe me over the sources they've already gone into? You know, my friend, when my friend who's an anti-vaxxer is getting his information, he's not ringing me up and saying, Scotty Hottie, I've got information on the internet. I want to run it by you first because you are the person I trust with information. They're not. They go on their own thoughts process, don't they? I don't call someone up and say, excuse me, I'm trying to develop my opinion. Can you tell me what it is? But yet they find the information, they get it themselves. So they're not, when I start to argue with them, they're not going to say, oh, thank God I've met you again, Scotty Hottie, because I value your opinion over my own and I'll just listen to you and change mine. It just, so yeah, I've made that point. But it's really important here in terms of suicide, isn't it? Do not debate the value of living or argue that suicide is right or wrong, because you're not going to convince someone of something through an argument. You're going to create a bad energy. Trying to work together. This is the follow-on point from this, is we're trying to work together. And that's why politics is so, excuse my language, chuffed. Why chuffing politics is never going to chuffing work. It's never going to chuffing work because it's designed to create this irreparable difference. When really, we should be saying, okay, these are all our opinions, but instead of voting for this one and you're in charge and you're only a third of the party and you'll get your little seat, instead of that, we're all forced to work together. Because in society we are. We can't say, oh, well, I voted for Brexit, I didn't. Okay, well, I'm going to live in the part of England that is Brexit and you can live in the part that's not. We didn't do that. We're all in the same boat. So really, we have to all have our opinions and voices heard and work together. We can't say, well, we're in charge for a bit, you don't get to say, and then you can be in charge for a bit and we don't get to say, and then we'll... It just doesn't. It's silly. It's silly. But that's another story. We're talking about suicide, aren't we? Let's get... See, I was so going to bullet point this, and then I've just gone right off on a right wanging tangent. Do not ask a question that indicates you want no for an answer. For example, you're not thinking about suicide, are you? That's interesting because... That's my catchphrase. We need to put a t-shirt out with... That's interesting. That's interesting because... it's interesting, though, because... It's so easy to do, isn't it? You're worried about something, so it's a negative in your mind. And, oh, you're not doing this, are you? I worry about it. You don't want them to say, yes, I am. And then you have to go through this process of this conversation that's difficult and awkward anyway. So you're not... It gives someone the opportunity to just say no. In fact, it leads them into the easy answer of just saying no. And then where do you go with that? Then where do you go? You have to argue with them. Well, I think you are. Well, I just said I'm not. Great, we're back to the argument. So do not use a no, a closed-ended yes-no question that implies the no is a better answer than the yes, is a more safe or happy answer, that, you know, is a better answer. Do not try to single-handedly resolve the situation. Yeah, I said that earlier and I really agree with that. When I say bring someone in, of course, two heads are better than one, aren't they? It's not easy for one person to fix everyone's or anyone's problems. So don't try and do it on your own. Try and bring more people in. Because, of course, the more people that are involved in the support of someone, the more chance they've got of receiving enough support to get better. Never say it's all in your head or just snap out of it. We looked at that before as well, didn't we? You've got to respect the feelings of the person you're helping. You simply have to respect their feelings. And we talk about distraction on Mental Health Monday. We talk about if you're having anxieties that you should distract yourself. That comes under snap out of it. It's all in your head. Think about something else. We try and do that consciously ourselves to help ourselves deal with stresses and negative emotions. Fine. But we're not going to say that at crisis point, that is the, you know, a bit of mindfulness now, forget it. That's not what we're going to say. It's not good enough. It's not enough. I'm going to go on a minor tangent now and have a minor rant, which was that I read an article while I was researching today's episode about ASMR as a therapy. I think they were an ASMR artist. I haven't seen their work, but they are also a doctor or research scientist, and they did a research paper about whether ASMR can be used as a therapy, and it made me angry because I thought, today we're doing, crisis point suicide. Imagine someone at crisis point opening up an ASMR video and finding that whilst it's slightly relaxing and you get a few tingles, it doesn't actually help your real life problems, and you go on to kill yourself. Imagine labeling an ASMR video as some sort of therapy, or this will help you sleep, or 100% of people will get to sleep from this, and you don't. You lie awake all night, still with the heartache and the insomnia. What have these people done to help people by labeling this stuff as that? No. It's nice. In the same way as mindfulness is really powerful and really nice, but we're talking about the serious, on the ground, in the moment, crisis point. There are certain things that don't cut the mustard, that are just not good enough, and that's why we're in this problem, this mental health problem crisis in our country, in a wider sense as well, because the things that are offered, and we'll come to at the end, but the things that are offered are either not good enough, not there, or a bit, what am I going to say here? It goes, do you remember that time I told you the story about that woman who wasted all the money on the kids' cafe in our local town? It's nice people with well-meaning intentions, but they just don't understand the severity of the problem, and they just do not have the capacity to really help where it's needed. So they offer these hollow options, and quite often, there's a number of people that seem quite nice, but are actually personally benefiting out of the offer. Why don't you watch the ASMR videos that I make and get me some advertising money so you can feel better? And if you feel better, great. And if you don't, it doesn't matter. I've still got my advertising money. Trust me, it's therapy. It makes me cross. But never say it's all in your head. Just snap out of it. Never say that we're going to distract you from this and we're going to feel better that way. That's something we say all the time in Mental Health Monday. That's what the ASMR is for. But at the end of the day, the mindfulness and the meditation is not an emergency measure. It's something you cultivate to maintain a healthy mental health perspective. But once you're down in this thin end of the wedge, once you're down in this ditch, it's not, it's not a step ladder out of that slurry. It's not me reaching out a hand for you to hold. In the real terms. So ASMR can help you. You put it on to distract you from dark thoughts. I agree with you there, Snippy Snips. It does help you sleep. Yeah, it is good, but it's not some magic quality of ASMR that's making that good. There are other forms of, the thing that it's doing, the distraction, is what it's helping. It's not that whispering and tingles fix your brain, is it? And these wider problems that you are distracting yourself from are not ever going to be faced up to and fixed through distraction by ASMR. And I even, there's these other, got me on a little mini round, but I'll just finish it. There's this other, for example, because we're dealing with anxiety and things like that. We're dealing with really trying to fix them. But there's these other, therapies that are thrown out there, aren't they? Like wet flannel therapy. And if you put a wet flannel on your face every day, the magic mystic meridians will make your anxiety go away. And ultimately it won't, will it? It's just, it might for some people, and some people might like the wet flannel, but we're dealing with a mental health crisis where people are running around at crisis point. And if you put a wet flannel on their face, they're just going to take it off and throw it down and say, look, for fuck's sake, I'm actually fucking breaking here. Do you know what I'm saying? Do you know what I'm saying? Any tips on getting radically comfortable with being vulnerable? I said new chatter. I'm going to ring the new. I haven't got a bell. I should ring it. Photonic Flow. Love the name. Photonic Flow. Lovely name. I've been trying it. Often leads me to extreme anxiety. Okay. I'm going to pause this suicide thing for a minute, and we're going to look exactly at this, because I think that's a really good question. Yeah. Any tips on getting radically comfortable? Okay, number one, I don't think you need to get radically comfortable immediately. I think things in life are processes. So for some people, they might like to throw off the towel and jump into the sea naked, and then you're in and you're wet, aren't you? But for some others, you might not enjoy being wet and naked, and then all of a sudden it's too late. I completely see that. So I think that doing it progressively and in small ways, opening up, it's big in ways. I'll give you an example. Playing my guitar, when I play my guitar and sing, it makes me feel so anxious and vulnerable. It's like I'm opening up my heart to people, and at the same time trying to perform it in a way that they find acceptable in terms of artistic content. I'm not that good a singer. I feel vulnerable. I'm not that good a guitar player. I worry. And then I'm saying these personal things from my heart, these words I've written that reveal my feelings, and I feel hot and afraid, and it makes me cry. So I have not played that many gigs, but I have played gigs, and the ones I've chosen to try and do, I remember the good example is the cinema. My family and friends came to it at the cinema bar. So it's a cinema, it's not a big thing, it's just got a bar and they've got a balcony, and other people play. It's acoustic night, so I was like third of 4 or 5. I wasn't going to be the main one, and so there were reasons and ways that it was enabling me to, in my mind, say, look, it's not that bad. It's not going to be that bad. And the worst thing that can happen is I just decide, look, after one song, it's not for me, someone else can take over. No one's going to be that cross. So I did what was a smaller thing, and I got through it, and it helped me to literally do those things that we're talking about, be more vulnerable, be more comfortable with being vulnerable, because I've done it. So I believe that doing small things in small ways, and maybe picking on things like that you might not want to read your diary aloud, but you could read a poem aloud, maybe. Maybe finding a way to, we talked about express yourself on a previous episode of Mental Health Monday, which if you want to watch Mental Health Monday on previous episodes, they're all on YouTube there. But maybe finding ways to express yourself that deal with that vulnerability, that expose you in ways that are also empowering and enable you to feel in control of the amount of vulnerability, can help, can't they? It's a journey, but I've been making steps to grow, just like I feel each time I do, it makes me want to crawl back into my shell. Do you know what? I'll tell you something special about that you really need to hear. You really need to hear. That's everyone. That's us all. I feel exactly like that. I come on here and I talk on the internet to everybody in the world. And if nobody's watching, I edit it and put it on YouTube and hope they watch later. But, I feel anxious before I turn on this computer. I feel nervous. I get in the flow, and it's okay. It's okay. We're doing it. But then afterwards, I edit it and I look at myself and I think, I've been saying all this chuff. And I think, am I good enough? Can I even go on stream again? Am I even doing the right thing? That's not just me. I mean, I'm talking about me. I'm doing the thing that I said. Shouldn't I don't want to pick on you, so I'm not saying you. But you feel like that, don't you, with your, exactly what you're saying in the comments. And I'll tell you who else feels like that. Chuffing everyone. Kanye West goes on about how he's better than Jesus, but when he gets home, he thinks, God, have I sounded like a chuffing idiot or what? And then he starts eating his, cocaine flakes. I didn't say that. Frosty flakes. And then he goes, I'm better than Jesus again. I don't know. I'm joking there about Kanye. But honestly, we all feel like that. That's human. It's human to feel like that. If you didn't feel like that, then there'd be a problem. And do you know what's amazing as well? What's amazing is you look at the artists, right? You look at the artists that are the people that are able to be vulnerable, the people that are able to show this vulnerability. And I'll tell you something amazing is that the ones we love the most, the ones that we identify with and say, like, imagine, this is a great example. Imagine America's Got Talent or Britain's Got Talent or wherever you're from, they've got talent too. Right? Imagine that. When the little girl comes on, or the insecure person with the bad hair, and you think, they're going to have a hard time, aren't they? And this person doesn't quite have the personality that most of these pop stars have. And you think, they're going to have a hard time. But you want for it to go well, don't you? And then when it does, when they open out into this operatic performance, when they turn out to be a beautiful soul that has that same pain and difficulty with expression, but they overcome it. You know, just like you, when you know that they're feeling that nervousness. I'm feeling it now talking about it. I'm feeling emotional talking about it. That emotional nervousness, but they have to step through it, and you know, they have to give it a go, don't they? And when they do, and when they can belt it out, you know, everyone fucking loves it, don't they? Sorry for my swearing. Everyone chuffing loves it. I love it when you thank people for your subs. I love it when people gift you subs because it's financially good for me. But really, I love it when there's thanks going back and forth, because it shows us that you really are, you deserve that sub, and you really belong in the Ganji Puko Warrior crew. So what I'm saying is that we see this in life. We see those vulnerable people. We see their forms of expression, and we want to go and hold them up and cheer them, don't we? I know you do. I know you do. I know they're the forms of art. I know they're the singers that you love. I know they're the performances that draw you to tears. I know they're the movies that you watch again and again. So, you know, this is what a hero is. These are who heroes are. Heroes are not the people who start out in the start of the film as the giant strongman and crush everybody in their wake. They're the baddies. The heroes are the ones who start out small, who have difficulty expressing themselves, who feel vulnerable, who are human beings. And despite this, as part of this, because of this, end up able to express something from within that seems super powerful to them. Being a superhero is being human, because the emotion of being able to say to somebody, you know, are you feeling suicidal? Can we talk about it? It's not easy, but I'm going to do it. That vulnerability that you go through, the playing the guitar in front of the people, whatever your little test that you want to give yourself. And a good one that I used to be a hairdresser, and I had to talk to people who come in the shop and do their hair. So I had to get over this very quickly. I had to say to somebody, sit down, let me touch you. You know, and I used to practice this by going up to people in a shop or in the street and saying, excuse me, and literally touching them on the shoulder, saying, excuse me, do you have the time? And that's not hard to do. It's just silly. Do you have the time? They tell me the time and we're done. But it's hard, isn't it, to break that personal... I actually did a poetry video on YouTube, which was scary. You don't regret it. Yeah, exactly. These things that get done. And it might not be that you get a bajillion... We don't get a bajillion views on YouTube, but it doesn't matter to me. What matters to me is, like you said, the process of doing it, and that it exists there, and it's like part of your journey, and that if someone chose to find it, they could get something out of it. And that's the case for the most wonderful art in the world. But the most wonderful art in the world touches people on a personal level. If your video, which, drop us a link sometime, maybe you can't in here, because we'll find a way of getting you links another time, trust me. I'll get a Discord set up, and I'll watch it. And if it reaches one person, that's the same as the biggest art in the world. That just reached people on a one-to-one level, one person at a time. And your art can reach one person. It's done its work. Yeah, we're all human. We're all in it together. I've gone on a bit of a big rant, but the bit of the big rant was the answer to your question. In answer to your question, the answer is practice, small steps, and yeah, one final point I'd say on this is that we talk in Mental Health Monday a lot about feeling emotions, and that it's okay to feel them, and that feeling nervous, feeling afraid, at the end of it, after you've done the process, you can look back on your emotions and say, well, I'm happy that I felt those things. And it wasn't all just flatlining. You know, life is up and downs. And even if it went wrong, or, you know, you get back on the horse, you try again, once you've recovered from the embarrassment or whatever, you know, you look back and you laugh at these things. And I'm glad that I felt things. I'm glad I felt things. I want to feel things. That's the real life. That's the real life. So overall, yeah, you come out of it better off. And it can be small things, and they can lead to bigger things. And that's what happens, is it leads to, you know, people see you doing your poems, and then they ask you if you want to come to the next poetry night, and you meet friends, and you develop this, the people at the other end who are out there shouting their poems in the street, they didn't start out like that. They developed it in this process that we've talked about. So there we go. That's the answer to your question. I'm glad we did that question. And the final bullet point that I have to say for the edit is, please remember, a suicide threat or attempt is a medical emergency requiring professional help as soon as possible. We will put the medical helps in the edit. Techniques that will de-escalate a crisis. Do we get to that now? Types of treatment. We don't get to that now, I'm afraid. We pick up again next week, and which is fine, because I've got actually a bit more to do about this urgent stuff, and I wanted to talk about crisis points and who you should call and how to, one-on-one deal with it. But I also wanted to talk about if it's you that's in the crisis, how to deal with it. But I really feel like I'm happy that we ended on such a high positive. We're not ended yet, you don't have to go anywhere. If you mention that, everyone disappears, but we'll do our little wrapping up here. And I'm quite hot and my dog needs a walk. So Mental Health Mondays, every Monday at 8 p.m. GMT, and at 10 p.m. GMT, 2 hours of it you get, because at 10 p.m. my dog needs his walk. And if you don't get his walk, he does his poopy, well, he tries to hold it in or whatever. And then I've got a real... I've got an additional task on my Monday. But my Mental Health Monday is finished by dog walkie, poopy duty. So that's what will happen soon. It can't be amended. But as a streamer, what we do here is more than that. We look at games, we talk about art, we talk about feelings, we talk about news. We do a bit of streaming, don't we? And we try to get more in the week. I do all the editing, I do all the other stuff in my normal life as well, which you can learn about it's not a secret. This week I had to try and fix a radiator. Oh God, all the water juffed out everywhere. And I was like, at first I thought, leave that alone. And then I thought, no, don't leave it alone, because if you leave it alone, you have to get involved. So I had to get my hand on that pipe. Don't tell anyone. So yeah, that's what we do. We are the Ganji Puka Warrior crew. We're pushing forward in small ways, just like you are. Just like you are. Just like you are. So we're all humans. We're all in this together. That's the main takeaway from this episode, I think, is the good thing to take away from it. And I'll tell you another special thing to think about here before we leave, is that just as we're doing this now, this little nucleus, this little thing, it's happening in society. We care about each other. We do. And there are lots of negative things in society. There are lots of things that you're going to see tomorrow that are going to make you feel a bit There are lots of things that you're going to hear from people that are going to make you feel a bit But you've also got to remember that we're here and you've got us, and we can do this together. And it's growing into... If we're doing this, someone else is doing it out there too. And all we've got to do is keep doing it and keep raising the voice, keep waving the flag, until you can start to see the other flags over there, and you can start to, if we set up our bonfire, if we start to make that visible, then other people, you'll start to see on the hills far away that there's a light burning in the distance, and if we can start to bring these things into existence in small ways, we can start to bring them into existence into bigger ways. And eventually we won't be talking about what a difficulty it is to help someone. We'll be talking about what it was like in the past when people needed help. Do you know what I mean? We can push for something better. And so Mental Health Monday is only one aspect of our stream here. The other aspect is that other stuff, the stuff we enjoy and the stuff that brings joy to our lives. So I want you to remember that for me is you. You're bringing joy to my life. Today, doing Mental Health Monday, honestly, the joy that I feel from seeing these new names, from seeing these, I don't want to say old names, but regular is a better word, isn't it? Regular names, both together, is joyful to me. So you're playing a huge part in someone else's joy. So make sure you remember that. And you be good, my little podcast. I always say this. You be good. The battery's going to run out now, so we have to be good. You be good, my little podcast. And if you can't be good, you're naughty. You're naughty. Well, you're not naughty, are you? Look, we did 10,000. Is it 10, 100, 1,000? I can't do numbers very well, but that's a lot of tippies. The dog's going to get his poo picked up tonight. I'll tell you that. It's going to get it put in one of the posh bags tonight. Marlo, break out the posh bags. We've had some tippies. Daddy doesn't have to put it in his washable sock tonight, does he? We can use the disposable bags, Marlo. You be good. You be good. You are good. You are good.